I wasn't supposed to be there. That's the part that keeps looping in my head. I had no reason to be at that particular Italian restaurant on the outskirts of Austin, at least not one that Leslie would ever suspect. She thought I was in Dallas. I told her there was a supplier meeting up there, a site audit that might run long. I left that morning with a packed overnight bag, a pressed shirt I had no intention of wearing, and a made-up itinerary that I'd rehearsed like a sales pitch. I even left the printed agenda on the kitchen counter, just for authenticity. Instead, I drove south, booked a cheap motel room a few blocks from her office, sat in silence with my phone in my hand for hours, asking myself if I was really the kind of man who spies on his wife. Turns out I didn't hire a PI, didn't hack her phone or tail her with binoculars. All I had was instinct, and a few loose threads that didn't add up. So I tugged. That's how I ended up sitting alone at a two-top table near the window, water in front of me, untouched. My phone, angled just so against the curtain and half concealed by a fake potted plant, captured everything. I didn't need audio. I already knew the story by heart. The hostess seated them 2 tables away, Leslie and Kyle. I recognized him immediately, though we'd never actually met. I'd seen pictures, linked in #TS, the occasional photo in their company's newsletter, which Leslie used to forward me when she was proud of something. Not lately, though. He was taller than I expected, broad-shouldered, one of those guys who dressed like he was going to a meeting even on the weekends. Charcoal blazer, white shirt, no tie, confident posture. He stood when she arrived and pulled her chair out with a familiarity that didn't come from being strictly work. She was wearing the green wrap dress, the one she used to reserve for anniversaries, weddings, and that one weekend getaway in Charleston she couldn't stop talking about afterward. It hadn't made an appearance in over a year. Not for me, anyway. The way she smiled at him made something in my stomach twist. She did that thing. Tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, tilted her head just slightly to the side, like she was trying to freeze time with a single look. And Kyle? He soaked it in, like he'd been waiting for it. I watched them talk. I watched her lean in. I watched her laugh at things he said. Laugh in a way that used to be mine. There was a comfort between them that didn't belong in a professional setting. Private rhythm. At one point, she brushed his hand by accident, or maybe not. Either way, she didn't recoil. If anything, she lingered there. He said something that made her cover her mouth with her hand as she laughed, then touched her wrist. She didn't flinch. I saw her foot move beneath the table and settle next to his. And then it happened. He reached under the table, slow and deliberate, and placed his hand on her thigh. I couldn't see where exactly, just that it was high enough that she should have reacted. Pulled away. Instead, she glanced at him and smiled, tilted her chin down like she was savoring it. He leaned over and whispered something into her ear. She laughed again. A soft, familiar sound. But it wasn't for me. I caught it all on video. My hands weren't steady. I had to reframe the *T a few times just to keep them in frame. But I got what I needed. I didn't know what I would do with it, not yet. But in that moment, I knew something in me had broken. Quietly, cleanly. The thing that gets me even now wasn't the touch. It wasn't the laughter or the eye contact or the way she leaned in like they were already deep into something physical. It was the calmness, the ease. She looked happy, not distracted, not uncertain, not like someone caught in a mistake. She looked like a woman where she wanted to be, with someone who wasn't her husband. I didn't confront them. I paid my bill and walked out before dessert. She got home around 10:30, just like she said she would. The garage door groaned open. I was on the couch, TV on mute. She walked in like nothing had happened. "Hey babe," she said, heels in hand, keys jingling in her purse. Traffic was awful. I swear, the on-ramp near I-35 is a nightmare. She walked over, leaned down, kissed the top of my head, and asked, "How was Dallas?" It hit me then how easily she lied. The smoothness of it. Like she'd done it before. Like she'd practiced. I waited a beat, then stood. "I saw you," I said. She froze, still holding her purse. "What do you mean?" "At the restaurant." You and Kyle. There was a pause, just long enough to register as recognition. Her eyes widened, then narrowed, calculating. Oh my God, Jason, are you serious right now? She set her purse down slowly, like she didn't want to startle a wild animal. You followed me? You're spying on me now? I didn't answer. I just stared at her, waiting to see what came next. You're paranoid, she said, folding her arms. You've been like this for months. I can't even breathe without you making it a federal case. Kyle is a coworker. We had dinner to go over logistics for Q1 shipping. That's it. I didn't move. She kept going. You know what this is? This is your guilt, your coldness. You check out emotionally, and then you invent stories to justify it. This is on you, Jason. It didn't sound spontaneous. It sounded like a script, a well-worn speech. What did he whisper to you? I asked quietly. She blinked. Just once. What? At the table, when his hand was on your thigh. What did he say that made you laugh like that? Her face changed then. Not guilt, not shame, just stillness, like a statue waiting for weather to pass. You recorded us? She asked, her voice dropping. I saw everything. She didn't deny it, didn't even try. Wow, she whispered, turning away. Unbelievable. We didn't talk the rest of the night. She went upstairs. I stayed downstairs. In the silence, I watched the video again. Just once. It hurt, but not in the way I expected. The pain wasn't about the act itself. It was about the realization that she had already left the marriage long before that night. I was just the last one to figure it out. That night, I didn't sleep. Not really. I just lay there, eyes wide open in the dark, listening to the shallow rhythm of Leslie's breathing from the other room. She'd taken the guest bed, like some unspoken ceasefire. I could hear the old ceiling fan turning above me, and the soft creak of the hallway would settling with the house. But mostly I heard my own thoughts. Funny thing about betrayal, it doesn't hit you all at once. It lands in stages, like waves. The first wave is disbelief. That stunned, hollow pause where your mind tries to reject what your eyes have already confirmed. But once the shock wears off, the second wave rolls in, and it's heavier. That's the one that carries all the memories. The ones you didn't know were red flags until they turned bright crimson in hindsight. And they came. God, they came fast. The business trips she didn't want to talk about. The ones where she packed light but left looking like she was dressing for an awards show. The Friday nights she started getting home later and later. Always something about last-minute warehouse meetings, regional team calls, or system failures that just wouldn't wait until Monday. The new passcode on her phone. The one she changed for work security compliance. And the way she suddenly started leaving it in her car during family dinners. I used to think that was respectful, her trying to be present. I even bragged about it to a friend once. Said something like, she really values quality time. Turns out she just didn't want me seeing her notifications light up mid-conversation. The iCloud thing, God. How did I not see that one? One day about 6 months ago, she casually mentioned needing to change her Apple ID password. Said she was locked out for security reasons. I offered to help, and she smiled, kissed me on the cheek and said, I got it, babe. That was the last time I ever had access. After that, shared calendars stopped syncing. Find My iPhone never quite worked. Everything turned just a little more opaque. And then there was the night she came home late from drinks with the team. I'd waited up, no reason, just couldn't sleep. She came through the door looking exhausted, but not in a work hangout kind of way. She looked disheveled. Her makeup smudged, shirt untucked, earrings missing. I asked how it went, and she mumbled something about logistics being a nightmare and how she wasn't in the mood to rehash it. Then she kissed me, light, fast, before disappearing into the shower. The smell hit me before the water even started running. It wasn't her perfume, and it wasn't mine either. Something subtle, unfamiliar. Couldn't place it, but I didn't ask. I didn't want the answer. I chalked it up to stress. That became my go-to excuse for everything. If she snapped at me, it was work stress. If she canceled plans with our daughter, again, it was stress. If she forgot my birthday and then tried to laugh it off by blaming her overloaded brain. I smiled and said, "Don't worry about it." I kept giving her the benefit of the doubt because that's what marriage is, right? Trust, grace, patience. But now, sitting in the dark with the evidence in my hand and the silence of our house pressing in from all sides, I understood. It wasn't stress. It was withdrawal, preparation, replacement. I started pulling at threads that I had ignored before. The change in her tone when she said my name. It used to be soft, affectionate. Lately it was clipped, functional, like she was addressing a coworker during a meeting. The way she stopped touching me, that happened gradually. A hand on the shoulder became a pat on the back. Kisses moved from lips to cheeks. Good night became a closed door. Even our daughter, Ellie, had noticed. She's 12. Smart, observant, a little too quiet sometimes. Like she's carrying secrets she's too young to have. She once asked me, "Is Mom mad at you?" I told her no, that things were just busy. I realized now she was asking because Leslie had started forgetting school events, missing recitals. She used to be front row, phone out, cheering like a maniac. Lately, it was always something came up, always work, always Kyle's department. God, Kyle. I started going through old texts, not hers, mine. Messages she sent me months ago, when things first started to shift. I don't know what I was hoping to find. Some clue, some crack. But what I found were breadcrumbs, canceled date nights, mysterious headaches, unavailable weekends, excuses I didn't even question at the time. One stood out. "Sorry, babe. Team dinner ran long. Crashing at the hotel so I can be up early for inventory. Love you." It was a Tuesday. A Tuesday. Who crashes at a hotel for a team dinner on a Tuesday? Why didn't I ask then? Why didn't I check? I scrolled back further and found photos we'd taken that winter during a road trip to Fredericksburg. I remember thinking she seemed distracted the whole time. I blamed the holiday season, family tension. But looking at the photos now, I could see it plain as day. I was leaning into her. She was leaning away, like two people on different timelines. And that's when I realized she'd already gone. Emotionally, she had already left the building. I was just the guy still vacuuming the carpet and watering the plants, pretending we still lived there. I lay in bed, eyes burning, hands numb, chest tight with something I didn't have words for. Not rage, not sorrow, something in between. Like grief, but for something still technically alive. She hadn't just lied. She'd trained me not to question the lie. That was the real betrayal. Somewhere around 4 a.m. I got out of bed and walked downstairs. I made coffee I wouldn't drink. Sat at the kitchen table. I pulled up our shared insurance account, then our tax portal, then our prenup. We'd signed it 14 years ago, back when we were still in love and thought the idea of divorce was some far-off, absurd formality. She'd even joked when we signed it, "It's like monopoly money, right?" But one clause stood out, written in plain language, notarized and witnessed. In the event of documented infidelity, control of joint assets will transfer immediately and unilaterally to the betrayed spouse, with legal counsel initiating execution upon proof. I don't remember which one of us insisted on it. Maybe me, maybe her. It had felt harmless at the time. It wasn't anymore. I closed the laptop, stood up slowly, and walked toward the guest room. I stood outside the door for a full minute. I could hear her breathing, peaceful, dreaming, maybe, of Kyle, of escape. I didn't go in, didn't wake her, didn't scream or break anything or demand answers. I just turned and walked away, because suddenly, I didn't need confirmation anymore. I already had the truth, and now I had a plan. The morning sunlight didn't feel warm. It just exposed things. Like the smudge on the microwave door she always said she'd clean. Like the pile of unopened mail I'd been ignoring. Like the look on my face in the hallway mirror. One I didn't recognize anymore. I didn't go into work that day. Didn't even bother calling in. I texted my manager, said something vague about a family emergency, and shut my phone off before she could respond. Then I poured myself a second cup of coffee I still didn't want, opened my laptop and got to work. First, the video. I loaded it from my phone to the desktop, slowed it down frame by frame. I wasn't looking for drama. I was looking for confirmation. Legal-grade clarity. Leslie's face was clear. Kyle's too. Their gestures, posture, proximity. The moment his hand moved to her thigh, her smile, the whisper, the laugh, all of it time-stamped, geotagged, irrefutable. Next came the metadata. My phone's GPS had placed me inside the restaurant. The file had been automatically backed up to the cloud the moment I connected to Wi-Fi at home. I created multiple copies, one on an encrypted flash drive, one uploaded to a secure folder, one burned onto a disk I labeled simply Tuesday. Then I went digging. Our cell carrier gave me more than I expected. She and I had separate lines on the same family plan. I logged into our shared dashboard and pulled up her call logs. Kyle's number wasn't saved under his real name, but there it was over and over. Short calls, long ones, calls that started just before she left for errands and ended when she pulled into the driveway. Calls that happened during lunch breaks and after midnight. Over 90 in the past 3 months alone. I ***ed everything, marked them, dated them. Then the text logs, not the content but the volume. Spikes on weekends. Activity during our anniversary. Valentine's Day. Even during the school conference we'd both missed because her boss needed her on a crisis call. After that, I moved to shared devices. The laptop she barely used but never logged out of. I went through the browser history, her cloud docs. Nothing blatant, but I found pieces. Snippets. A half-written email draft to someone labeled K. Another document titled Untitled Note that read, "He'll be fine eventually. He always is." I read that line twice, 3 times. It felt like a slap written in 12-point calibri. I exported the data, packaged it, built a digital folder with labeled subfolders. Video, ***TS, activity logs, account access, statements, evidence. I wasn't gathering it to make a scene. I was building a case. By 1 p.m. I was parked in front of my attorney's office. Rob Peterson had been our family lawyer since we bought the house. Middle-aged, sharp, kind, but no nonsense when it counted. I'd sat across from him a few times in the past for estate updates and title transfers. Never like this. He looked up from his desk as I walked in, unannounced. "Jason," he said, surprised. "You okay?" "No," I said. "But I will be." I sat down and slid the flash drive across the table. He plugged it in, brows furrowing as the folder opened. He clicked through the files, his expression shifting from curiosity to comprehension. "I assume you're not here about a parking ticket," he said quietly. "No, I'm here about the prenup. Clause 6B. His lips pressed into a line. He opened a drawer, pulled out a thick folder, and flipped to the agreement we'd signed 14 years ago. "Infidelity clause," he said, scanning it. "Still valid. Witnessed, notarized, and filed." He looked up. "Jason, if this is as solid as it looks, you're entitled to trigger full activation today. I want to start the process." He nodded, already opening his calendar. It moved fast after that. The clause didn't require litigation, it just required proof. And proof, it turned out, was something I had in abundance. By 3 p.m, Rob had filed notices to our financial institutions. Our joint accounts were frozen. Not liquidated, just paused, pending reassignment. A formal notice of breach had been drafted and was set to be delivered via courier to Leslie's work the next morning. Her company would be required to acknowledge that the recipient had received it. Official, clean, precise. Then came the asset lock. Our brokerage firm, one she didn't even know I had consolidated last year, froze all access to shared funds pending legal review. Our mortgage, refinanced 2 years ago under both names, would be restructured under my name alone once the transfer finalized. She'd signed off on it back when rates dropped, thinking she was being savvy. What she never considered, what most people never do, is that paperwork has a memory, and hers was about to bite her. Rob leaned back after the last form was signed. "You understand that this isn't revenge, right? It's enforcement." "I know," I said. He closed the folder gently. You don't owe her anything, Jason. You gave her years. You gave her the chance to come clean. This isn't petty. It's protection. I nodded. As I left his office, a system notification hit my phone. Account activity suspended. Joint access temporarily revoked. Just a single line of legalese. But to me it read, she knows now. By the time I got home, it had already started. For missed calls from Leslie. 2 voicemails. No texts, just calls, one after another. She never called that much, even when her mother was in the hospital. I didn't answer. Instead, I sat in the living room with the curtains half closed, watching the early evening light stretch across the floor like it was trying to escape. At 6:42 p.m., I heard the garage door open. She came in fast, face flushed, eyes wide, phone in her hand. Jason, what the hell is going on? I didn't speak, just watched her. I tried to pay for something and it declined. Then I checked our account. It's frozen? I can't even log in. What's happening? She was trying to stay calm, but I could see it cracking. I went to HR today, I said evenly. Had them sign receipt of the legal notice. It's done. What legal notice? The one notifying you that the clause has been activated. Her mouth opened slightly. Wait, you're really doing this? You're actually. It's not a threat. It's a process. One you agreed to. One you signed. She shook her head, stunned. No. You can't just, Jason, this is insane. This is overreacting. I stood up. You sat in a restaurant with another man's hand on your thigh. You laughed when he whispered to you. You didn't pull away. Her face turned red. That didn't mean. You lied to me. For months. I didn't cheat, she snapped. We never slept together. It was just emotional. I didn't cross the line. I stared at her, quiet. The line was miles behind you. She was panicking now, pacing. You can't take everything from me over this. We built this life together. No, I said. I built this life. You abandoned it. She stopped pacing. Her eyes searched mine for some crack, some way back in. But there wasn't one. She didn't cry. That came later. That night, she slept in the guest room again. I could hear her moving around at 2 a.m. Pacing, calling someone, probably Kyle. I didn't care. I was done being the man she thought she could lie to. This wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't retaliation. It was a shift. Not from love to hate. From us to me. It didn't happen all at once. That's the part she didn't understand. There was no explosion, no public meltdown. No screaming match in a parking lot or viral Facebook post. It was slower than that, quieter. A retreat, not a riot. I think Leslie expected something dramatic. Maybe she thought I'd announce her infidelity with a bullhorn or upload the video to some group chat of mutual friends. Maybe she was even bracing herself for it, rehearsing apologies or justifications in the mirror. But it never came, because I didn't need to burn the house down. All I had to do was leave the door open and let people look inside. And when they saw what was there, they walked away on their own. The first to go silent was Morgan, Leslie's ride-or-die friend since college. I'd always liked Morgan. She was sharp, funny, loyal to a fault. Leslie once told me that if anything ever happened to her, Morgan was the one who'd know where the real skeletons were buried. 2 days after the notice hit Leslie's inbox, Morgan stopped replying. Not just to Leslie, but to the group chat they shared with a few old friends from their marketing firm days. No LOL reactions. No memes. No Thursday brunch texts. Just nothing. I don't know if she said something privately. Maybe she just ghosted out of self-respect. Either way, her silence was a louder statement than any confrontation could have been. Then came Ellen from the salon. Leslie's appointments were always standing, every other Friday, for 30 p.m. sharp. She once told me she'd rather skip groceries for a week than skip her hair appointment. Self-maintenance, she called it. Her little ritual of control. The Friday after everything went down, she drove over like usual. Came back 20 minutes later, jaw clenched, muttering something about a scheduling mix-up. She didn't say more, but I knew what had happened. Ellen had been doing her hair for 9 years. Long enough to know the difference between an error and an erasure. That's what it was, an erasure. Not a punishment. Not revenge. Just removal. Like people suddenly realized who she really was, and quietly decided to opt out. The gym was next. Leslie used to spend 4 mornings a week there before work, earbuds in, treadmill cranked up, socializing just enough to be seen. She liked being recognized. Liked it when the front desk girl complimented her leggings or when the trainer high-fived her after a long set. Now, she stopped mentioning the gym. Started working out in our garage with her old yoga mat and a pair of mismatched dumbbells. When I asked about it, casually just to test her, she said, "Just switching things up. Crowds annoy me lately." But I could tell. She wasn't switching things up. She'd been switched out. Even church changed. We weren't weekly attenders, but we went often enough. Sat in the same row. Smiled at the same older couple every time. There was this woman, Angela, who ran a grief group Leslie helped out with when Angela's father passed away. They weren't best friends, but they cried together once in the parking lot. That meant something. Last week, Leslie came home with this stunned, hollow look on her face. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. Her phone buzzed while she was making tea, and I saw the notification on the lock screen. "Angela unfollowed you on Instagram." I know it sounds ridiculous, trivial, but in Leslie's world, unfollows were a form of exile. She paced for hours that night, even started typing out some kind of long message, then deleted it, then typed again, then stopped. I sat in the living room, pretending not to notice. She didn't cry, not then. But the next day, I caught her sitting in her car in the driveway. Just sitting. For 30 minutes. Engine off. Hands in her lap. Eyes staring forward like she was trying to reverse the past just by sitting still long enough. Later, when I checked the security feed. Yeah, I know I shouldn't have. I saw her open her phone, scroll through her contact list and slowly start clicking on names. Calling people. One after the other. No one picked up. She left a few voicemails. I couldn't hear the audio, but I saw the way her face changed. How her eyes started to water. How she clenched her jaw every time the screen flashed. Call ended. How she gripped the steering wheel when she called someone named Jules. A name I hadn't seen on her phone in months. She must have thought she'd be able to explain her way out of this. Convince them she was still the Leslie they knew. Maybe even frame me as the bitter husband, cold and calculated. But the problem wasn't what she did. The problem was how practiced she had become at lying. People don't like realizing they were cheering for a version of you that never really existed. And Leslie had spent years curating that version. The loving wife, the organized mom, the professional who balanced a conference call with packing gluten-free snacks for a PTA picnic. She was a master of it. Until the cracks got wide enough for the truth to bleed through. And people noticed. They didn't say anything. They just started stepping back. Invitations stopped coming. Texts stopped buzzing. The digital thread that tethered her to her image just frayed. She tried to make up for it at home. Started cooking more. Asking if I wanted to talk. Offering to pick up dinner. One night she even put on the green dress. Yes, the same one from the restaurant, and came downstairs like we were playing house. "Do you want to sit and eat together?" she asked, setting down 2 plates of salmon and rice. I looked at the plate, then at her. "I already ate," I said, not unkindly. She didn't respond, just stood there, like maybe I'd changed my mind. I didn't. She sat at the table by herself and picked at her food. I could hear the fork tapping the plate from the other room. Tink, 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 like someone trying to chisel her way out of silence. A few days later, she told me she was going to meet a friend for coffee. Said it casually, like she was still part of a social fabric that hadn't frayed to threads. I nodded. She came back 40 minutes later. I was still on the porch watering the plants. She didn't say anything, just went upstairs and stayed there for the rest of the evening. I checked later. The car's odometer said she'd gone 3 miles. There's only one coffee shop within 3 miles of us. I know the barista there. Used to be one of our daughter's babysitters. I'm guessing the coffee date didn't happen. She doesn't bring up friends anymore. Doesn't mention girls' nights or wine tastings or book clubs. She canceled her standing nail appointment, deleted her Facebook profile, started talking about wanting to unplug. It wasn't just loneliness. It was recognition of what she'd done, of what it cost. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't enjoy watching her world shrink. But I didn't save her from it either. Because here's the thing no one tells you. When someone betrays you, it's not just you they let down. It's everyone who believed in the version of themselves they used to sell. And when that version dies, there's no funeral. Just distance. Just silence. Just the slow, aching sound of someone realizing they don't get to come back. I never posted anything. No long captions. No status updates. No cryptic quotes or not-so-subtle photos of myself looking mysteriously better off. I didn't delete Leslie from social media either. Didn't block, didn't mute, didn't unfriend. I just stopped interacting. Silence did more than any argument ever could. She'd been the visible one between us. Always curating the image. The family brunches, the corporate awards, the matching flannel Christmas photos we staged even though Ellie hated wearing plaid. She once told me, "If it's not online, it didn't happen." I used to laugh at that. Now I realized it was a warning. After the separation, I slipped out of view. No fanfare. No big declarations. I didn't need people to know what I was doing. I just needed to do it. So I did. The first thing I did was take 2 weeks off work. Not for grief. Not to process. I took the time to think. Recalibrate. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was swimming against a current someone else had set. I started waking up early again by choice. Not because I had to help get Ellie to school or because Leslie needed the car by 7:15. I woke up because I wanted to. The house was quiet in the mornings, like it was exhaling. I made coffee, sat on the back porch, let the quiet press in. There's a certain clarity that only comes from solitude, the kind that doesn't beg for your attention but waits for you to be ready. The second thing I did was start running again. Nothing intense. No goal to hit a marathon or post Strava records. Just movement. Just me and the road and the sound of gravel underfoot. I remembered how much I used to love that rhythm. Before marriage. Before obligations. Before I started making my life small so hers could feel big. Then came the side projects. A lot of people didn't know I'd been building things behind the scenes. I never talked about it, mostly because Leslie used to roll her eyes when I brought it up. "You and your little projects," she once said, smirking. "You're always chasing something." She said it like it was a flaw. But those little projects had turned into something. Over the last 4 years, I'd quietly started 3 LLCs. 2 in digital consulting, 1 in supply chain logistics, an offshoot from contacts I made during my full-time job. Nothing flashy, but steady, profitable, smart. I moved my base of operations into a co-working space downtown. Signed a lease under my name only. Started mentoring a few younger guys, most of them fresh out of the foster system or former youth program participants who'd aged out. I didn't tell anyone about that either. Not even Ellie. Some things didn't need witnesses to matter. By month 3, the structure of my life had changed entirely. I wasn't rebuilding. That word gets used too often, like you're putting the same house back together. No, I was building something different. Something she'd never seen because she never looked close enough. Leslie must have picked up on it eventually. She started reaching out again. Not in dramatic soap opera fashion, just subtle. A forwarded email from our mortgage lender with a "thought you might need this." A shared calendar invite for Ellie's upcoming dental appointment. A message asking if I'd like to grab coffee sometime to talk. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her. I didn't. I just wasn't interested in reopening a door I'd already boarded shut. A few weeks later, her private investigator showed up. That part surprised me. He didn't say he was a PI, not outright. Just introduced himself as Thomas. Said he was working on behalf of someone who wanted an updated assessment of recent business developments. I played dumb for about 5 minutes until he dropped her name. I didn't get angry. I just smiled. "Everything she wants to know," I said, "is public record." She can look it up like anyone else. Still, I knew what was coming. I knew she wanted to know what I'd done since she left. How I was able to keep the house. How I'd moved money. What I'd built. Who I was spending time with. So I gave her an answer without speaking to her directly. I updated my business profiles. Added my new title. Quietly listed my shares in the fitness center I'd bought partial ownership in. One that helps men over 40 who are starting over after major life transitions. The irony didn't escape me. I changed my beneficiary documents. Created a living trust. Opened a fund in my mother's name for single dads pursuing trade certifications. Did it feel vindictive? Not at all. I wasn't hiding anything. I just stopped offering myself up as someone for her to orbit. I became still. That's the best way I can describe it. There's a power in stillness, especially after chaos. My home became a sanctuary again. I painted the office. Took down the framed wedding photos. Kept the ones with Ellie, of course. I wasn't erasing my past. I was just choosing what got to stay in the frame. People started noticing the shift. Not on social media because again, I didn't post. But friends started reaching out. Old colleagues. Even my sister, who I hadn't talked to much over the years, messaged me one night and said, "You seem different. Not worse. Just grounded." Grounded. I liked that. Not healed. Not better off. Just grounded. Present. Ellie noticed too. She came into my office one afternoon after school, holding a cup of tea she made me. Chamomile, no sugar, the way I like it. "You're happy?" she said, not as a question, but as a quiet observation. "I'm okay," I told her. "And that's a pretty good start." She nodded and sat down across from me, kicking her shoes off and curling her legs underneath her like she used to do when she was little. She looked out the window for a while, then asked, "Do you miss her?" I didn't lie. "Sometimes," I said, "but not in the way you think." She didn't press, just nodded and sipped her own tea. That was enough. It was around that time I got the letter. A physical envelope. No return address. My name in her handwriting. Inside was a single photo. It was me, kneeling in the dirt next to a boy. Maybe 10 years old, his hands covered in soil. We were planting a tree. The kid was smiling, wide and toothy. I wasn't looking at the camera. I was looking at him. On the back of the photo were 5 words, written in pen. "Some roots don't grow back." No signature. No explanation. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was confused, but because I wasn't. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a peace offering either. It was a boundary. The only kind that matters, the kind you don't explain. I put the photo in a drawer. Not to save it. Not to display it. Just to remember what I learned. That life doesn't reward noise. It rewards clarity. Leslie used to say I was boring. Predictable. That I didn't dream big enough. She was right in a way. I didn't dream about yachts or weekend getaways in Greece or conference stages with a headset mic and applause. I dreamed about still mornings. Strong coffee. A front porch that faced the sunrise. A daughter who felt safe. A name that didn't carry apology. And now, I'm not chasing anything. I'm just living the life I was capable of all along. The one she never saw because she was too busy looking past it. Leslie kept reaching out. Emails, voicemails. A letter with a photo of Ellie at age 6, holding both our hands on a beach in Galveston. She asked for a conversation. Closure. A second chance. I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a photo. I was kneeling in a garden beside a boy, maybe 9, showing him how to plant a sapling. We weren't posing. We were focused. Present. On the back, I had written 5 words before mailing it. Some roots don't grow back. No explanation. No signature. Just clarity. I saw her months later, outside an auto parts store. She looked thinner, older. "Jason," she said, hopeful. I nodded politely. Recognition, not warmth. No resentment. She stepped closer, searching for something to say. I listened, then said quietly, "I don't think about you anymore. It wasn't cruel. Just true. She stood there, alone, as I walked back to my car. A boy was waiting in the passenger seat. I didn't look back. She hadn't been betrayed. She'd been erased.